Blimey, it all sounds very dramatic, doesn't it? I was going to say, I was just sorting out some bits and pieces, putting stuff out there, and it occurred to me that what I probably could have done, and should have done, was hop in right as that last bit of music finished, and it would have sounded so much better, but the best laid plans of mice and men, and all that. What we'll do, fade that out. Let's get rid of that, because what we then need to do is hit the button. That light turns on. Hey, there we go. That's what we want. Oh, some water in the system as well. Let people join. Let's let people see what's going on. Keep answering that warm-up question as well, of course, folks. What minor annoyance in life is worth a 2-minute minor penalty? You can see we've got a couple of answers that we'll look at momentarily. My camera is not very straight, but I'm not going to fiddle with it now because it's a bit temperamental and I don't want to accidentally knock it out with the USB socket. So we'll roll with it like that. Just got a few bits and pieces that we got there. Just make sure the link is out in all the requisite places too, as people start to filter their way in. It's always that horrible feeling as well of like what news is going to come out like during the show that we need to instantly kind of talk about, if anything. Nothing drastic happening right at the moment. No big news. Nothing huge happening. Obviously I know the Clan and the Panthers are playing as we speak. Nothing that I can see in the immediacy though. No big horrible news unless you're desperate to know about the Sheffield Steel Dogs going to watch Sheffield United, which to me probably feels slightly more harsh than anything Dops could probably throw at them at the moment. Excuse me. There we go. Let's just quickly as well just check that everything's coming through on YouTube at the other end. Clearly a few people joining in the party. Folk are joining ever so slowly. That's what we like. A few people I know actually as well who don't join in with the chat that I know that have that watch, and they watch on the big TV, which I'm not quite sure how well this translates onto a massive television. I should assume everybody watches on their phone, but I do know a few people, particularly a few people who watch on Catch Up, who will watch, like, put the show on like a massive television, which to me is just a bit unnerving and a bit weird. Let's just there we go. That's a little bit better. There we go. And that means it's probably time to get rocking and rolling. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary, it is Wednesday night, it is 8 PM, and welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you through the weird, wonderful and wacky world that is the National Ice Hockey League structure. Here in Great Britain, we focus on the National Division. That is our bread and butter, that is our home port, but of course we take a moment over the next 60 to 90 minutes to go through absolutely anything and everything from across the NIHL. That means the National Division, as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well on this Wednesday evening. Of course, there is a bit of hockey going on in the background. We will be keeping a little bit of tabs, if we can, on the Glasgow Clan and the Nottingham Panthers, who are playing. Who are obviously playing up in what I keep calling Braehead, but isn't Braehead anymore. But they're rocking and rolling away. But before we kick on too much, there's a lot to talk about, of course. Some big games that happened this past weekend across the NIHL. The first trophy of the season officially decided already. Some big games in the National. A couple of teams picking up their first win of their existence, which is always pretty awesome to check out too. But let's do the little bit of housekeeping that we like to do before we really get rocking and rolling. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. And of course, you can join me throughout my weird and weaving journey through British hockey for 24-25. which is our Banners on the Road series, where you get your in-depth look at whatever game I popped up at over the last week. Which this week I was in Slough for the first time this season for the Berkshire Bees against the Milton Keynes Lightning from the National Division from Saturday. That's on the website now on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. That went up this afternoon. It was a little bit late just due to reasons of life, and if nothing else, I have my programme article to write for the Romford Raiders, which kind of takes precedence because I have to get that in by Tuesday morning. But yeah, that game, we'll talk about it more when we get into the National Division results. But yeah, frustrating to watch, I think, is probably the best description of that. But you've got this past, all the games so far from this season, all of last season's games, as well as our Hockey Story series, long form pieces of content where you can go from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond. Been working on the latest one for a while just because it's been hard to pin down a couple of people I wanted to speak to, but have actually managed to finally get hold of some extra people. So the next Hockey Stories piece should hopefully be out in the next week or in the next couple of weeks, once I've managed to finish doing some bits and pieces with some interviews, then put it together. But it's one of these pieces, it's really annoying actually, the Hockey Stories piece I'm working on right now, because I've been working on it for so long, so the fact it's actually starting to come to fruition is quite interesting. And then as soon as I'm doing that, I had an idea for something else, which was a tiny bit annoying, but such is the way of life. Either way, you've got 13 years worth of stuff you can go catch up on at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. And the other bit of housekeeping that we need to do, of course, is all the social bits and pieces. Twitter at bannersotw, facebook.com/bannersonthewall. But you can, of course, we're live on YouTube right now, Wednesday nights 8 PM throughout the season, which means down there in the description box is the link to all the socials that you need, including the link to our virtual busking hat at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. But like I say, you are here. It is Wednesday evening. It's time to chat some British hockey, and of course that means when we're live you can use the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts and feelings, anything else that you want to chuck in as we chat our way through what's happened in the last week or so of British hockey. All that we ask is, if you are putting something in the chat, please remember the golden rule, DBAD, don't be a dick, be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we are going to have a lovely, wonderful time this evening. I can see them in the chat actually. Seagull, a regular contributor, lovely to see you back in the chat. Funny you say that. I've got the stream on my TV, but the chat on my phone allows me to check socials and stuff and without missing the stream or YouTube resetting. That sounds like the best way to do it. I'm not sure how I look in 1080p, but hopefully once I've bothered to get myself a haircut this weekend, I will look slightly better than I currently do now. Like I say, just always keeping a bit of a half an eye on the scores for bits and pieces. Although if Andrew Day is lurking in the chat, we all know full well that we will get the best updates about such things from him relatively quickly. Pretty busy weekend for me, just because of a few bits and pieces. I was like I say, in Slough Saturday evening. Then went and saw the in-laws on Sunday, so then it was coming back and finding one of the umpteen games to find. Hockey just seems to keep sort of trundling along. Bit of a weird weekend as well in the National Division, which we'll get into in a bit. But lots of stuff going on. And the one thing that we actually should do is talk about the fact, like I say, the first trophy of the season has been decided, which of course, I don't know whether people missed it. If you did miss it, try and go back and find actually a really lovely piece that BBC Sport Wales did about last weekend's deciding game in the Welsh Cup. Fantastic that between the Deeside Dragons and the Cardiff Fire, they've both managed to pull this competition together. The two sides met a couple of weeks ago in North Wales, a 5-5 final score there in that first leg, and a huge result down in Cardiff Bay. It's been between these two sides, it's been a real ding-dong battle. And of course, with Deesa having recently signed Jet Witkowski, who turned up in his first game and lit the league on fire, he made himself the Dragons' top point scorer inside the first weekend of their season. But a massive game down in Cardiff Bay, which finishes Cardiff Fire 9, Deeside Dragons 11, meaning that the Deeside Dragons are, for the first time since the 80s, the Welsh Cup winners for 2024. They win by an aggregate score of 16-14 over 2 legs, which unfortunately feel this feels like some of the amount of goals that Bristol Pitbulls have kind of been letting in one game, although not quite as bad as some, as we will see in some results from earlier this week. And I said Andrew Davis going to pop up and give us the scores, because that's what Andrew does there. Clan 1, Panthers 0 in the Elite League this evening. Tyson McClellan with the early goal there, 3:17 into the first. And I can see some friends of ours from South 2 have joined us in the chat as well. The Lee Valley Lions So Lions are massive. Well, it was certainly a very interesting weekend for the Lions, which of course, when we get down to South 2, we will chat about in due course. Old school score there in Wales. Yeah, retro night. Yeah, and a competition revived from the 80s. So they went for some 80s British Hockey League scoring there. Double figures and all kinds of craziness. But if you paid to go to that game on Saturday evening and you ended up with a 20-goal game, I think that one's worked out quite well for you there. But congratulations, of course, to Deeside being the first Welsh Cup winners for quite some time. Fantastic that they're able to obviously do this at South 1 level. It's at South 1 North 1 level, where obviously Cardiff stepping up, the Fire stepping up from Division 2 into Division 1 this year, and the Canucks are now taking that spot in Div 2. But it does mean that we can have some sort of fun different competitions like this. And we can see there. Thoughts on the private post that got leaked to the fan pages regarding the anticipated treatment of Ross Venus at Peterborough Phantoms this weekend? I have to confess, I have not seen them. That being said, I think we all probably knew that such things would probably, there would be he would not get a warm reception following what happened last year. Of course, people unaware, a check from Ross Venus was what ended up unfortunately injuring Duncan Spears, Peterborough Phantoms forward, who ended up breaking his leg as a result. I'm sure there will be some, like I say, Ross Venus, however, having been a proper professional, as in hockey was his job for quite some time, he knows what he's going to be at the end of. I think the thing I would probably say to any Peterborough fans, like I said, I've not seen anything in terms of plans of what people are doing. You can poke, I think there's a line that people kind of need to cross, and I think when you think back, and this is a horribly extreme example, but let's touch on that for a minute, because you can chirp, poke fun, rile up opponents. So as a football fan, I'm an AFC Bournemouth fan. They played Southampton the other night. Bournemouth won 3-1. Obviously very happy. Former Bournemouth player Ryan Fraser returning to Dean Court as a member of Southampton after when Bournemouth got relegated from the Premier League. Fraser's contract ran out in the gap because of COVID, and he refused to play for the club, despite the fact others signed small extensions to keep playing into that sort of COVID elongated season. So Ryan Fraser got absolutely rinsed for the 45 minutes he was on the pitch. Absolutely fine. Nothing really crossed the line there. There, you think of what happened this year in the Champions Hockey League. Berlin go to Osnetium, and they are greeted with a massive banner in the stands that says, "This is the scene of your greatest crime, German death camps." Bit too far to be poking at. It's not quite. For a Berlin side laden with imports and Liam Kirk, it should also be said, faced with that sort of thing, that's a step too far. It's not that politics doesn't have a place in sport. I readily quite often say politics has a place in sport, but you can be smart with your politics and you can be smart with how you do things. So if people want to boo Ross Venus this weekend, fine, that's within their rights. I think people need to know where the line is between what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. If nothing else, because if you're in a space with kids, be mindful of the space that you are in with other people, I think is probably the thing on that front. Anyway, let's have a quick squiz at the National Division from this past weekend. So let's just pull up the bits and pieces, and I'll pull up my graphics as well, because of course, given the fact the first trophy of the NIHL season has been decided, obviously separate of the leagues itself, but the other first of this season so far, the first Nel Classico of 24-25 happening last Saturday night down in Swindon, and a big victory for the Swindon Wildcats. The Swindon Wildcats side without Tomasz Malazinski, banned for 3 games for that hit to the head of Vanya Antonov in the game against the Bees last weekend, but a huge turn up for the books here for the Wildcats. Down arguably one of their best ever forwards. You have to think that Malazinski's got to be a candidate for jersey retirement when he eventually hands them up. And also some unlikely goal scorers in this one as well. 2 goals for Josh Shaw, as well as a goal for Luke Johnson. Ed Bradley, Aaron Nell and Eggers Bebras picking up goals for the Cats. The Knights getting goals through Matt Barron and 2 from Kieran Brown. Clearly back to his very best following his concussion injury. But yeah, the Knights just not quite at the races. And the thing, of course, with Swindon is that Swindon are very, very good. And the big criticism or observation, shall we say, of their game is that Swindon do play to their opponents, and the Knights stylistically play very much like the Wildcats do, and that is a thing that will obviously work really, really well for them. But especially given given that overtime loss in Romford will have probably made a few people kind of scratch their heads. But important either way for the Cats to get a big win, keeps them in that sort of top part conversation of what's going on. Those two Shaw goals, yes, the highlights, he did very, very well on both those goals. And then of course there was the game I was at last weekend. Why is that not moving along? That's a little bit irritating. I need to, what do we need to do here? What's gone wrong here? Why is that not shifting along in my... Apologies everybody, just having a little bit of a technical flub here with my graphics, because the graphics come up on the screen for you guys, but I kind of have them as a rolling thing for my for here, so I can flick along, because on my screen everybody is incredibly tiny and everything is really, really small there. But I'll figure that out momentarily as we go along. Either way, the game I was at Saturday, Berkshire Bees versus the Milton Keynes Lightning, a 6-3 win for the Lightning. It's a bit of a, like I say, go read the write-up that I've done on bandnosontheball.wordpress.com. You know, pretty sort of self, you know, you can have a look through there and it'll kind of go really in depth. The two kind of big parallel tracks on this one, actually, sorry, apologies, 3, because there's kind of one for each team and then one for the game in general. For the Bees, I think the really, really big thing here is that the Bees were not the better side in this game. So there are, you know, short benched, a few kind of issues and bits and pieces going on, and they kind of never really, kind of got themselves going properly in some ways, because they had all of these great ideas, but never quite got the ability to kind of to have really, really good high-end scoring chances. Now, a chunk of that is the other parallel track, which is MK's defence. People will look at the goals, people will look at the goal scored and go, oh, it's that MK offence again doing the business. Actually, in this game, MK were really, really good defensively. I've never been Will Curlin's biggest advocate. I personally think, certainly out of the two of those netminders, that Jordan Headley is the better goalie. But one of the things that his D in front of him did really, really well on Saturday night was Curlin got grade A, secure core level worth of protection here. The MK defence for the majority of this game, until the game was well past the point of being a contest, were really, really good at holding, just not letting the Bees get good quality contact on shots, and just letting everything, just not allowing anything or anyone to really get at Curlin. Any puck that was kind of in front, stick in the way, something in the way, body in the way, nothing really worked for them. And also as well, if you haven't gone and checked the highlights, do go check the highlights. The Dylan Lawrence goal, the 4th goal, which was an immediate response off the back of the Bees first, is absolutely beautiful. It is a superb goal. The 3rd track of this one is, and I have put it in the piece, the officiating in this game left me thoroughly confused. There was not enough kind of good consistency to kind of make the game make sense. And there were some incidents in this game where I am surprised people stayed in this game and weren't ejected. There was some really unsavoury kind of incidents in this game. You can kind of argue the toss in a couple of directions. The one that I thought was particularly egregious, Harry Gulliver going through the back of Marcel Balach after the whistle had been blown. But the thing, I'm utterly surprised Gulliver got a 2+2 on that thing. He probably should have got a 5 as a minimum, and there was an argument for chucking him out because it just looked like a mugging. Nothing had particularly happened, and Gulliver has just sort of leapt on the back of Marcel Balach and just started punching him. There was a lot of off the puck stuff as well, and I think that's the officiating just did not control that game particularly well. Things were penalties 1 minute that weren't the next. A perfectly good goal as well actually for the Bees washed out in this one, and that one's on the highlights if you haven't had the chance to check it out. But as well, I think the other thing that came out of this game for me was MK fans, if you're worried, like when MK get going, they're going to cause a lot of problems here and they will be very, very good. But I think where the defence has been a criticism for MK fans of their own side so far, some really, really good defensive play. And people look at 6-3, arguably flat as the Bees a tiny bit on the balance of play, But MK's defence for the majority of this game, like I say, until the game was past the point of being a contest, not a thing there. Speaking of defence, oh boy, lots and lots of fun up in Scotland, and a big convincing win for the Solway Sharks as well. A game that had 9 different goal scorers for the Sharks. So having sort of struggled a bit offensively the other week when I saw them against Swindon down in Swindon, they've now, that's what you want at home, is the ability to just kind of go. Be able to go gangbusters. And of course, it was 0-0 after 20 minutes, which was also fantastic into the bargain. But you can see down there, sort of in the middle, 2 short-handed goals there, one from Kel Beattie and one from Liam Stenton, less than 40 seconds apart. That's right, the Tigers giving up 2 short-handed goals on the same power play. Oh, you're not going. Oh, that's bad. That's not a great start for the Tigers. Alderson, Danskin, Dunbar, Boyd, Beattie, Stenton, Scott Henderson, Callie Robertson, and Nolan Gardiner, because he has to pop up and score at least once a weekend for the Sharks. Scott McKenzie, Vlad Luka, and Devon Skaleski. So kind of the big heavy hitters that you'd want to score for Telford, but you're not going to win games if you end up conceding. 9 goals into the bargain. Peterborough, who have started a bit. Who have been a bit, lost a couple of games, lost this one as well. A 5-3 win for the Sheffield Steel Dogs at Ice Sheffield. Once again, everybody treated to the Sam Tremblay show. A hat trick from him, including an empty netter at the end to seal the victory, along with goals for Jonathan Phillips and Elmeri Helfors. Sheffield, of course, everybody and their mother poked a little bit of fun at Sheffield for losing to Bristol, but it does feel like, particularly Sam Tremblay, who has really gotten himself going quite quickly, and those some of these imports are really doing the business. Helfors as well, scoring on the power play. When I've spoken to Jamie McElroy about Elmeri Helfors, that's the kind of the sort of thing they wanted to be able to do, to kind of pop up on the man advantage and really punish other teams. Goals for the Phantoms in this one from Cameron Huff, Nathan Salem, and Luke Ferrara. Huff, of course, getting Peterborough off to a very good start, just scoring 12 seconds in. And given the fact that Sheffield were coming off that loss to Bristol, I think you might have had a few nervy Steel Dogs fans into the bargain in that one. And then moving down to Bristol, and a Bristol side that. Well, it's been a tough start to the season already for them, but of course, coming off that big win in Sheffield, they were then greeted with the fact that not only no Tommy Napier for the start of this weekend, but also no Tyler Delabatouche as well, a concussion-like injury causing him a bit of an issue, which meant a call-up into the National Division and a National Division debut for Owen Ryder of the Invicta Dynamos. Ryder, a goalkeeper that I have seen a fair few times now on my travels around. I really like Owen Ryder. I think sometimes, like all goalies, I think confidence is probably the thing that is the bigger factor in his play. Obviously, for readers of the website, I did see him get pulled in Gosport the other weekend when his defence just kind of didn't help him. But he faces the firing squad in his National Division debut. But more power to him for stepping up. I know, obviously, there was some talk in that situation. Both your goalkeepers are down. Who do you get in? But a fantastic opportunity for Owen Ryder, and also as well, credit to the Invicta Dynamos, Kev Parrish, Carl Lennon, for allowing Owen to have the opportunity, especially when you've got Brad Windybank as another option in net. Invicta called up one of their young netminders to kind of back up, so that experience has kind of sort of paid on. Ryder's got a crack at the National Division. Their young guys had the opportunity to sit on the bench. Windybank's got some big minutes this past weekend off the back of not being able to, being injured quite a bit over the last couple of years. But unfortunately, it's not a winning debut for him. Early goals from the Raiders, and the Raiders, who are really, really starting to get themselves going early. An 8-3 win for Adam Leishram's side early on, and again, guys, getting goals across the lineup here. A couple of goals there for Leishram as well, but Brandon Aliff, Aidan Wilson, a power play goal from Jacob Ranson feels like a troll. Tommy Huggett as well on the score sheet, as well as Jack Cooper and Jake Sylvester. Nick Price with 2 goals for the Pitbulls, and the other goal coming in the third period from Tanner Butler. The Pitbulls seem to be able to kind of hanging around a little bit for games, but then eventually just sort of getting pushed away and out of it. And if that was a good Saturday night for the Raiders, it got even better on Sunday. Another big team, another team that It will be looking towards trophies. Comes into Ron Valley Way, comes into the Sapphire, and gets beaten in overtime. The Raiders come back in the third period again, 3-1 to the Seahawks at the end of the first period, and then 3 goals in the last sort of just over quarter of an hour, last 15 minutes and 1 second, get Raiders to overtime. And then, I mean, we talked about some unlikely heroes in this one. And probably one of the things that caused a lot of people over the summer to scratch their heads was this dearth of high quality Slough players. This is, of course, a Romford side that had Matt Smittle, borrowed from the Slough Jets, in goal. Sebastian Moore, Matt Smittle did play at some point during this weekend. Obviously, he played on the Saturday, but then Ethan James has played on the Sunday. But Seb Moore, Christian Moore into the lineup, and that, do not let your eyes deceive you. That game-winning goal in overtime, Sebastian Moore from Christian Moore from Ethan James, is the game winner in Romford on Sunday. It's an absolutely it's a fantastic finish from Seb Moore. I can see Jamie's stuck that in the chat. Regular viewers of the show, and I know obviously people kind of dip in and dip out, but I've been talking for a while about that holy trinity at Slough, the Moore brothers and Jack Goodchild. Luke Smittle is also on a two-way with Romford. You kind of have to scratch your head about the fact of why they're not with the Bees, and we will leave that hanging in the air. But what a way to kind of announce yourself, particularly as well for Seb Moore, who sort of played for GB recently, and kind of Brindley Caps have sort of taken a step over him and kind of past him, and people were saying, oh, why is Seb Moore not in the national division? And I felt he needed to stay in. I personally felt that staying in South One for a year and kind of dominating was a really good thing for him. But hey, if Seb Moore's going to force the issue on a big stage against one of the big teams and get yourself a game winner, and also massive credit to Adam Leishram for sticking 2 guys on mainly South One contracts on the ice together in overtime. And that is the sort of thing that happens. It's almost like you should trust the British kids to do the job, because look what happens when you do. Seb Moore with the game winner there. Harvey Briggs, Adam Leishram, Sean Miller and Brandon A for the other goals for the Raiders. Bobby Chamberlain, 2 from Owen Sobchuk, and Emil Svek with the goals for Hull, who still get a point. And do remain top of the table. For Bristol, on the other hand, they had to go and play Leeds. I mean, it's been a really. I mean, let's be honest here. Bristol's opening to the season has been mental. They played Leeds twice, Leeds twice. Bristol had to play Hull twice. It's not been an easy one for them. Let's be honest. And the Knights don't really have to get out of second gear. They barely had to. Get out of first gear, let's be honest. But either way, credit to the Pitbulls for doing what they've done again. It was 2-2 for about a minute and a bit. Matt Hayward, Kieran Brown, Matt Barron, Noah McMullen, Matt Bissonnette, Ethan Hare, 2 goals for Hayward in this one as the Knights cruise to a comfortable win. Reece Smeatham and Bobby Reagan with the goals for the Pitbulls. MK then with the sort of weekend, of course, not only do Leeds lose, but MK win twice. Kind of got a little bit dicey towards the end. I mean, it was 4-3. It was 4-3 with just under 4 minutes to go, and then MK doing MK things, because if you look at that Lewis Young goal to make it 4-3 at 56:07 on the power play, and then but 56:17 Ross Venus, Henry Grinnell Park, and then Harry Gulliver 5 seconds from the end to just kind of. I mean, this is the thing with MK. This is the kind of firepower they have. But again, this is Solway, a team who missed the playoffs last year, picked up a couple of wins, still kind of figuring out themselves a little bit. But again, teams can get pushed, but those teams with quality are the ones that are able to kind of put their hand out and push the other teams away. Ben Solder, Ross Venus with 2, Tim Wallace, Tom Rutkiss, Grinnell Park and Harry Gulliver, as we said, Liam Stenton, John Dunbar and Lewis Young for the Sharks. And then Swindon, after such a good Saturday evening, and one that they will have been massively, massively happy about, going to losing Peterborough. I know a few folk, and if you haven't checked out Macca's Talk Hockey, then they obviously talked about it as well. they were confused by the officiating in this game. But Peterborough being Peterborough, you don't bet against them at home. And ultimately, a scoreless third period is what keeps this game where it is. Peterborough as well. Behind. They were 2-0 down, pulled it back. Put themselves in front. Swindon equalised, and ultimately the game winner comes at 35-13. 2 goals in this one from Nathan Salem, one for Cam Huff, and one for Brad Bowering. Glenn Billing, Jake Bricknell with who started the season very, very well points wise, and Balint Pakodzi with the goals for the Cats as they lose this one in regulation. But then the Bees, God bless them, after busting their humps quite heavily on Saturday evening and feeling a bit aggrieved by a lack of calls, by good fortune not going their way, and a really short bench as well. They lost Josh Smith and Hallam Wilson during Saturday night, ending the game with an incredibly, with literally as many people on the off the ice as they had on it at one point. But the bad start for Telford keeps on going. They lose. The Bees go into Telford with a short bench and win by 6-3. The Marcel Balaz show, as if we knew that he wasn't a good enough goal scorer at this level. A hat trick followed by that empty netter as well. A 4-goal night from the Slovak. Adam Rossbottom and Dom Gubai with the other goals for the Bees. For Telford, well, the head scratching has to go on. I can see in the chat that Segala's put in. Tommy was very open and honest in his interview, saying he's willing to make changes when players are available. Pitbulls versus Tigers is going to be interesting this season, both on and off the ice. But again, kind of the guys you'd want to be doing, scoring goals. Devon Skaleski with another goal there. Scott McKenzie with another goal, another point as well in his young career for Noah Keharainen, who I see is going to be playing for the Manchester Storm against the Coventry Blaze this Friday night, and a goal for Rhodes Mitchell King. Guys they're able to put points on the board, but yeah, Telford just seem to have forgotten how to win at the moment, which is pretty bad. By the looks of it, Telford Tigers 2. You need to go to North 2 if you want to watch your team win games, I think is probably the thing about it at the moment. That, of course, then leads us into the fixtures for this upcoming Saturday and Sunday, the 5th and 6th. Okay, Devon had a 6-point weekend and Telford had a 0-point weekend, and that's the problem right there. But yeah, Saturday the 5th of October then in the National Division. It's, for the Bees coming off the back of that win, can they make it 2 in a row? They will probably have something of an uphill battle as they face the Leeds Knights. Bristol take on Peterborough. MK versus Hull in what promises to be probably the showcase game of the weekend. Can the Lightning make a real statement off the back of their 4-point weekend against sort of lower end opposition? Telford, the latest ones to try their luck in Romford, and the Swindon Wildcats take on the Sheffield Steel Dogs. And then on Sunday, can Hull get a measure of revenge? Matty Davis has laid down the challenge about making Hull into a place that people actually don't want to come and play. Maybe having a little bit of a dig at the Raiders fans there. But yes, Hull versus Romford at the World's Most Versatile Arena. Leeds take on Solway. Peterborough take on the MK Lightning. The Ashes returns for the first time this season. Sheffield take on the Bees. And yes, as was mentioned earlier in the chat, a big game towards the bottom end of the table. The Telford Tigers and the Bristol Pitbulls. The Tigers still looking for their first win of the campaign. Let's hit that. And we'll go back to... Hey, there we go. They need to channel the spirit of Claude Dumas. They need the spirit of early 90s Claude Dumas. They need somebody to do 170 something points at this point, G. It's not looking good. Good evening, Mitchell. Thank you for joining us. Just checking the old... just checking a few bits and pieces. That is... that is actually somebody from my Hockey Stories piece, which is actually really nice that they've gotten back to me. But yeah, so ultimately as well, what we will do very quickly is let's see if we can't, whilst we're chatting about it, because like a wallop, I didn't press the buttons. This is going to make everything go a little bit jerky, and I apologise for that. Actually, no, that's not going to work. Let's go to there, because then what I can do preparation, everybody. This is the let's try and get up the table actually just whilst we're talking about it. just so that we can have an early look, because we are a month into the season now. Everybody's played a few games. If I click on standings, because what I should be able to do, once I've accepted that, if Microsoft Edge would stop being a pain in the bum, if I do that, and then I do that, and then I press that button there, what's going to happen? Hey, there we go. The National Division table, everybody. What I do need to do is go like that, because Telford are sort of poking off the bottom of the table there. There we go. There's the National Division table as it stands at the moment. Leeds back to the Leeds currently. Leeds, according to this one, back at the top as it is. 10 points from 6 games. Hull and Swindon then on 9. MK and Romford on 8. I don't think we had people thinking that Romford would have this good a start to the season. You know, a 4-1 start for the Raiders is probably not on anybody's radar. Followed by Peterborough, Sheffield and Solway to round out those early playoff spots. The Bees in 9th with 3 points. Bristol with 2. Telford at the bottom, 5 games played, 0 points. Though, of course, you look at that there, though. Bristol with a minus 30 goal difference. And the Tigers with a far better goal difference. Scored more goals, conceded less goals, but have less points on the board, which is pretty crazy. We'll come down Saturday in MK to whether Hull can keep their discipline. I think actually there's a thing to be said about MK keeping their discipline too, because like the one thing people never say about MK, and I will say this out loud, they are off the puck merchants. There's sticks and ribs and everything everywhere. And actually the one thing that MK are really, really good is drawing people into doing those kind of things with them, because you beat people with experience. Is that, you know, if you're good at it, you force people into those kind of things. And, you know, that was kind of the example of that last weekend that I saw with my own 2 eyes was, you know, short bench and what does Rio Grinnell Park do? Antagonises Stuart Mogg. You know, MK could live without a forward. It's harder for the Bees to live without a D-man in that one. And actually, I think one of the things that Hull are not a team for finesse, but it should be a but I think ultimately Hull feel a little bit smarter than they did the year before. Year 1 was a year of learning. Year 2 was a year of kind of growing and finding things out, but still maybe lacking a little bit of nous in this division. But actually, I think, you know, if Hull keep their discipline, here's the thing, Hull might just drag MK straight into the mud with them. And if both teams kind of lose out, who wins becomes the trick there. I'm really interested to see the net minding battle for this coming Saturday. You know, do Hull start McLaughlin? Do they start Simosdra? Curlin's not played badly recently, but do you put Headley in who for me, Headley is the better netminder of the two? Do you put him in the big game? Could be an interesting weekend between Telford and Bristol. 100%. That game on Sunday looks huge. Interested to see whether Napier makes an appearance. Is Della Batouche back and fit? You know, can Telford just find a way to be defensively better? I think is probably the big question there. Cardiff Canucks have announced the signing of Zach Shanahan, a Welsh lad who spent his career in Cardiff until a 6-year break before playing for Bristol in D2 last year. Yeah, just having an extra older body, I think is really, really helpful as well. There's a lot of young kids on that kind of program with the Canucks, so having a few older guys to just teach young men how to be grown-ups, I think sometimes is really helpful too. Big weekend for MK. Hull are looking so lethal and be after revenge on the cup final loss, knowing that they're the last team to beat MK at home in the regular season, then Peterborough away. Yeah, it is a big week. I think it is a big weekend actually for MK, and I know there's sort of been a lot of sort of wailing and gnashing of teeth early on from MK. So the worries about the defensive sort of stability recently, but it's still a D kind of finding their way. In some ways, like having a weekend against Bees and Sharks, two sides who, you know, are going to be, you know, punching up into the playoffs rather than punching towards trophies. I think good for the confidence, if nothing else. And like I say, you know, with all 6-3, people will go, you know, but it was like I say, Goals let in at the end when things kind of were past sort of being a thing. When the game was a contest, MK's D this weekend on Saturday evening was really good. I think it's finding its feet, and I think it's, you know, and if last weekend was kind of the wind up, you know, they need to hit the pitch that's coming towards them on Saturday, because otherwise, you know, Hull look really good. Hull look really, really good, and Cornell, you know, Johnny Cornell is as good as, if not a better import addition to the lineup than a Dylan Lawrence, who of course missed a chunk of Saturday and Sunday, so hopefully he'll be fit. But maybe that's Lawrence being rested for this weekend. Need to have 2 strong rests in MK Saturday night, please. Yeah, I can appreciate why you'd feel that, Jamie, especially. Hopefully that official will have learned from this past weekend, because I think there's some real things that need to be better, and I think hopefully if you end up with a with a Matthews and Ion show, do not be surprised. I think on Saturday would be what I would say on that one. But either way, the National Division, you know, starting to kind of shape up. Sort of the big shock, I think, probably is how good Romford have started off the season. Peterborough, of course, have had some injuries early, so they've been a sort of a bit wobbly. The big surprise, though, really, I think, is Telford having no wins through 3 weekends. That's a really big shock for everybody. And you know, Tommy Watkins saying that, you know, if players are available, he'll make those changes. I'm fascinated to see what he does. In that respect, it feels like they're missing Dan Rose. And I know Nick Oliver has obviously stepped away, but it feels like they kind of miss somebody. It feels like they're missing a high quality bruiser on the back end to kind of just be defensive. Rhodes Mitchell King is kind of carrying a lot of workload on that D, but he's quite attacking minded. Do you try and bring Noah Kararainen in full time? Well, he's quite attacking minded as well. You need a defenseman. You know, bringing Corey Goodison back, I understand why they've done that, but he's obviously been, you know, took a step back, and he's still getting himself up to speed. But where do they go and find a good import defenseman at this point? Does one, you know, do they lose an import? You know, we saw on Sunday Zach Yokoyama. I said to you Telford fans, he was not going to be scared to get in the mix and throw fists if he needed to, but yeah, just. It's all big frustrations, I think, in Telford at the moment. And I think when they find a way to win one, it was kind of like when I watched Swindon versus Solway the other weekend. When the Wildcats got one, they were always going to get 2. If Telford can get 1 win, I feel that will start. You know, they'll start going. There's far too much talent on that roster for them to be too bad for too long. Swindon versus Sheffield will be a very interesting game, I reckon. I'm interested to see that one as well from a stylistic standpoint. I'm really fascinated as to how Sheffield approach Swindon. Swindon are very much a known commodity. Sheffield are still kind of sort of forming together a bit, and we will kind of see where the sort of new Sheffield side kind of stacks up. A bit, and of course it's another game for the Cats without Tomasz Malazinski. 3-game ban, so Saturday will be his last game of his ban. Glasgow now 2-0 up against the Panthers. Thank you to Dylan for chucking that one in the chat. What we will do then, let's click that other button. Let's go back to whence we came, because of course we need to look at our friends from around the rest of the NIHL, starting as we like to do in 1 North, and another win for the Nottingham Lions. Admittedly, they've already played the Sheffield Shimmers twice this season, and the Shims are yet to win. A goal early in the third period from Miles Keogh, breaking the shutout there, but a pretty comprehensive win there again from the Lions. Wyatt Scott, Alish Padalek with 2 goals, and Tyler Somerton helping the Lions to another win there. Pretty impressive stuff, and another Lucas Sheldon getting some big minutes as he wasn't deputising for the Panthers on this occasion. And well, the whole Jets have come to play. We'll scoot back up and look at the table in a minute, but the Jets have got another win. It is an overtime winner from Nathan Parks, Britain, that puts them past Tony Hand and the Whitley Warriors. The Whitley 2-0 up at the half-hour mark of this game, and a third-period renaissance from the Hull Jets. Jacob Brown and Alex Kent getting the game in, scoring within sort of about just over a minute of each other to take the game into overtime, and it's a power play on a late high sticking call on Dean Holland that does the business. The whole, like I say, he joked about the Jets not being able to win away from home. They are putting everybody to the sword at the moment. Nobody is safe right now. Into Sunday then, and yeah, the Shims got battered. A 6th defeat for the Scimitars. They lose by 8-2 against the Billingham Stars. Pretty comprehensive. All things considered, another goal for Aidan Dancer, who's still having at least a productive year for the Scimitars as they are taking unfortunately quite a few kickings, but some scoring across the lines there. 2 goals for Canadian import Ian Brown, 2 for Conor McNulty, helping the Stars forward on this one. Both netminders actually getting some time as well. Both Jacob Hammond and Mark Turnbull getting a little bit of action in net. Always good to get minutes there. And then it has happened at last, where the National Division team can't stop winning. It had been 4 games on the bounce, 4 defeats in a row for the Leeds Knights in the NHL 1 roster, but the first win for the Leeds Knights and Leeds Knights 2 is on the board. They win by 7-2 this past Sunday against the Widnes Wild. Some interesting stuff from the Wild as well. A 3rd goal of the season for young Bailey Thompson, only 16 years old, on a 2-way with the Solway Sharks, but a pretty impressive result where ultimately at the end Leeds have just managed to put the foot down and push themselves out of sight. 2 goals from Owen Dell in this one as well. Some pretty, it's been a pretty rough start all in all for the Knights too, but against what was, as you can see, a very very short benched Widnes side at home. But the Knights finally get their win. Dan Norton, the netminder of note, as Leeds finally get themselves into the win column. Elsewhere, a game that probably a lot of people would be looking at from North One perspective in terms of what would happen to the kind of bigger heavy hitters. A 5-3 win for the Blackburn Hawks over the Solihull Barons. Big for the Hawks as well. Couple of surprise losses for them, and also Solihull have had a couple of odd losses as well, and then absolutely smacked the daylights out of Billingham the other week too. Very low penalty minutes game. Solihull only taking 1 penalty in the entirety of the match, but ultimately it is Blackburn who do the damage there. 5 different goal scorers as well for the Hawks, which is just what you want. Another 2-point night from some of their big hitters, from Jacob Lutwich, James Riddick and Adam Barnes. Those are the kind of guys you are going to want to keep rocking and rolling. And another goal for David Zurinox from D as well. Ben Keddy with the win. Just looking at the fixtures then for this upcoming weekend. Saturday 4:40, because face-off times are weird at Sheffield. The Sheffield Scimitars, can they get their first win of the season against the newly crowned Welsh Cup winners in the D-side Dragons? 5:30 then at the World's Most Versatile Arena. A big game now, seemingly with title implications potentially down the line. The Hull Jets and the Billingham Stars. 5:30 at the Castle for the Leeds Knights against the Widnes Wild. Can Leeds make it 2 in a row over their foes from Merseyside, or can Widnes get a measure of revenge? And then 6:30 p.m. 6:30 p.m. At the NIC, the Nottingham Lions and the Blackburn Hawks. I can see in the chat there that Dylan's asked, I think the Lions can beat Blackburn again. You wouldn't put it past them. It would be interesting, of course, for folk unaware. There is a bit of a sort of a rivalry of dislike between the Lions and the Hawks following the last couple of years, largely circulated around the antics of Zach Yokoyama, it must be said. But certainly there's nothing the Lions will want more than to win on home ice against Blackburn and dent what the start of the season looked like a very promising title challenge, but it's sort of faltered to start this season. Sunday then, D-side back at home. They take on Sheffield, so the home and home series for there. 5 p.m. at Hillheads for Whitley versus Widnes. Billingham take on Solihull, so that'll be another big game on Sunday. And in 7:20, back to the NIC for the Nottingham Lions against the Hull Jets. Tough weekend for Nottingham. You'd think they'll be happy coming out with 2 points, but this new Lions attitude wants to push itself in towards the playoffs. We'll be wanting the full 6 points here. If we scoop, just back to the top here, just because we can get a look at the table as of Sunday. The Hull Jets are top of North 1, ladies and gentlemen. They are racing away at the moment. 17 points from 6 games played. Only 1 point drop so far this season. Billingham 12 from 5. That loss to Solihull, denting them at the moment. Followed by Whitley. Nottingham are in 4th. That feels a bit crazy given the last couple of years of doing this show. Followed by Solihull, Deeside, Leeds, and then Widnes and Sheffield sit outside the playoff spots at the moment. Both Widnes and Sheffield without a win to their name. Into South One then, and something of an upset I think on Saturday evening down in Gosport, where the Solent Devils, who've had a bit of an up and down start to the season. Some good games, some bad games. Beaten 7-0 by Slough. Were ahead against Invicta 3-0 after 20 minutes and then lost, but managed to get a few wins on the board, and then they go and beat Chelmsford by 5-4. As well, Solent though nearly chucking it away. Solent 4-1 up in the 36th minute. Chelmsford come powering back, and then as we can see there, Kane Russell, of course, another player on the two-way with the Bees, 59-13 with the game winner, so having nearly potentially thrown it away again. The 7th goal of the season for Russell in 6 games. He has started off this South One season on a bit of a hot streak there. Another goal as well for Charlie Wedge. He's had a really productive start to the season since we've all done. Goals for the Chieftains from one from each of for the Bartletts, Cam and Grant, one from Callum Wells and one for Mikey Power. And as we said, Charlie Wedge, Travis Penny, Cam Buckle, and then 2 goals, and that game-winning goal, of course, from Kane Russell. 60 minutes as well for Rory Martin Edwards. 55 shots, 51 saves on the night as they win that one. Jordan Lorday takes the loss. He concedes 5 on 39. And then it was a home-and-home series this past weekend between the MK Thunder and the Streatham Redhawks. 12-2. As you can see there, it was 6-0 and 8-2. At one point, but yes, Streatham more than capable of kind of pushing their way past. The MK goals coming from Zonda Robinson. That's 3 goals in 6 games, which is pretty impressive for a first season at South One level for the young former Basingstoke Buffalo forward, and a first goal of the season for James Cox. As we scoop down, as we can see here, pretty one-sided affair. Unfortunately, multi-goal games from Ziggy Beasley, from Ethan Lane, from George Norcliffe, from Sam Waller, and from Ryan Watt. Only 1 goal from Luke Brittle, which, if we just scoot back up, Luke Brittle he's well into double figures for the season. Yes, that was Brittle's 11th goal of the season. Blimey, it feels a bit. All feels a little bit on the one-sided nation there. Into Sunday then in South One, and a pretty comfortable win for the Invicta Dynamos over the Swindon Wildcats. A couple of injuries as well causing some problems for the for Wildcats. One believe as well. If we just scoot down, yes, no Brett Massey injured at the moment. John Dibble backing up Ben Clark Leach, who faces 61 shots in his. In this one, and as we can see there, Nikolai Deval getting the backup duties with Owen Ryder playing with the Bristol Pitbulls. A pretty comfortable night for Brad Windybank, only facing 23 shots. 6 different goal scorers as well for the Dynamos in this one. Aaron Connolly and Tom Saw with 3-point nights. Charlie Turner getting the lone goal for the Wildcats in this one. And then a 6-point weekend for the Solent Devils as they win by 6 goals to 2 against Oxford. Oxford only with that lone win in the opening game of the season against the MK Thunder, the opening game of one of the opening games of the entire season. Oxford hung around in this one for quite a while, as we can kind of see. It was 3-2 with just over 8 minutes to go, and then Solent have just, again, like seems to happen quite a lot this season, they just put the foot down and push themselves away. Harry Harcup, Kane Russell, a first goal back for Solent for Liam Coleman on this one. Cam Buckle, Alex Murray, and a second of the night from Coleman, finishing off the task. Goals for the City Stars from Jack Peacock, and as we mentioned, Jake Williams. Aaron Taylor getting the 60 minutes in this one for the Devils, and Ross Miller again seeing the majority of the action. Although a first point in City Stars colours for new import forward Alex Tidings, he picks up an assist in that one to get him off the mark in British hockey. And then it's an NFL score on Sunday evening on the high road, 17-0. Not a competitive game. Goals literally throughout the lineup. Jordan Gregory getting a first goal of the season. I can't remember the last time Jordan Gregory scored. Luke Brittle now up to 13 goals in 5 games, which is a pretty impressive start. All things. Let's just scoot down there. It's a hat trick for Ziggy Beasley, a hat trick for Aidan Doughty, 2 goals for Brittle, 2 goals for Watt as well, and just not the night for MK. Unfortunately, if we just scoot down there, Caleb Sheehan left in for the entirety of the 60 minutes, which, I mean, you've got to feel bad there. 17 goals on 69 shots. Nikolai Romars gets a start in this one, a young up and coming Streatham prospect. 8-shot shutout. Yikes! I think is the only thing to say in that one. Just quickly have a scoot at the chat that we're doing. Clark Leach was very good and kept the score respectable. Fun fact I worked out, if you convert last season's results to this year's points, Lions are already halfway to last year's points total. I mean, fair play on that one. But yes, Southbourne fixtures for this weekend. So Saturday the 5th, 5:45 at the Riverside, Chelmsford take on the Swindon Wildcats. And also in Gillingham at the same time, Invicta versus Romford, a nice big local derby there. And then Battle of the Capitals down in Cardiff Bay. Cardiff Fire take on the Streatham Redhawks. 4 games on Sunday. Romford take on Solent at Sapphire at 5:15. 5:45 in Slough for the Jets and the Cardiff Fire. 6:15 at the Oxpens, which is where I will be this weekend. The A420 derby. They don't like each other in football. Let's see what hockey brings us, where BOTW will be going and giving you the in-depth look at the Oxford City Stars versus Swindon Wildcats NHL 1. And then 6:45 PM, MK Thunder versus Invicta faces off at the Thunderdome. We're just going to hop back very quickly, just to the full screen, just to talk about this. Sunday. Ryan Watt with 16 assists in 5 games. Yep, doesn't need to score anymore. But yes, Sunday this weekend. No Saturday game for me, but Sunday I will be making my way back to Oxpens. Went to a couple of games in Oxford last year, and I do want to go again, just because I know, obviously, last season, the start of 23-24. So much promise, so much buzz around Oxford, and it just did not work, and it all fell apart by the end, and it still feels like it's a little bit on shaky ground. But this was a game when I heard that Swindon Wildcats 1 were coming back into the league, and I kind of circled it on the calendar when the fixtures came out. One, because irrespective of the results at Oxford, I met some really, really awesome people there, some really lovely people. It's a fun old rink with a fun old school vibe to it. Secondly, getting the first look at Swindon NHL 1. There's obviously a lot of really, really good up and coming youngsters there. Really fascinated to see how they do. Oxford versus Swindon's always a fun sort of local derby, so hopefully should be a little bit of spice to it as well. Should be a lot of fun, and this is the thing. It's not always about these two teams are good this week. This will be a really good game. Can I get to it? But as well, for me, regular folk will know BOTW love to tell stories, and sometimes actually the stories are not always in the places where it's always glitz and glamour. Sometimes you have to kind of put your hands into the dust and the dirt and look a bit further down. That's not to say that the rink at Oxford is bad or anything like that, but when I look at the fixtures across NHL this weekend, this was the one that was easily that I could get to, and for me, it's the kind of thing that screams BOTW in terms of the chance to kind of tell that story. A very different looking Oxford side that's trying to pull itself back up out of the mud against a brand new Wildcats roster. Swindon Wildcats 2, put on hiatus when the rink flooded last year, and they've changed it around. It's not less of a sort of a Div 2 mentality, but the opportunity to kind of come and see that, as well as a lot of guys from Oxford who went back across to Swindon to play in this new NHL 1 setup. Ollie Stone playing again. I've not seen Ollie Stone play for a couple of years because he took time out off of the back of an ankle injury. There's a lot there to get really, really excited by for this one for me. And when I'm excited, I think I tell better stories too. So that should be that should make for a really, really fun time into the bargain as well. What we then do, let's have a quick look at Division 2. Because there's a game off the bat that we need to figure out what we're doing something with, because as you will notice there, and I think if I scroll down, Joe has not included it in the bits and pieces. Of course, if you like all the stuff that you're seeing, these sort of box score bits and pieces, NIHLstats.wordpress.com, the fantastic Joe Scutts, EIH official statistician for the NIHL, doing great work. One game abandoned during the first period on Saturday, the Kingston Sharks and the Deeside Ducks, a game that we did wonder last week on the show. from a bottom end of this North 2 division kind of thing, where that would kind of lie. But yeah, the game abandoned in the first period. No confirmation as to actually what's happening with it at the moment, which means that we kind of crack on with the other results. And well, it was a 2-0 win away at Billingham the weekend before for Sutton. And then they eke out a 1-0 victory, a 7th goal of the season for Morgan Gladsby in the first period, the only goal of the whole game. And I think from a North 2 perspective, where it felt like we said before, Telford 2 kind of held everybody at arm's length a little bit last year. But if we're going to get some really tight games like this, fantastic to kind of see. But Sutton still showing that little bit of extra class in this one. Hayden Laverick facing 44 shots. Lewis King with a 20-shot shutout. And the only netminder on the bench as well for the Sting. Still wearing 99. Still weird, I think, is the only thing to say on that one. And then it was a 6-point weekend for the Sting after just squeaking by the Buccaneers at the Forum the weekend before. They fully put the Stinger in this past Sunday. A 6-2 win for Sutton over the last year's playoff champions, who kind of sort of spoiled both Telford and Sutton's weekend. A pretty impressive weekend all in all from the Sting. Albeit interestingly, Ryan Apsley getting an illegal equipment penalty 55 seconds into the game. Billingham not helping themselves late on there. Matt Keeley thrown out for a check from behind penalty, and a slashing penalty to Simon Geldar on the right on the buzzer. Be interesting to see if we hear anything out of NHL Dops about that one. Joe Coulton, Charlie Saunders, Callum Russell, Cam Glasby, Lewis Glasby, and Elliot Meadows with the goals for the Sting. Josh Nerty and Lewis Hall with the goals for the Buccaneers. Only Lewis King this time, having had a shutout like before, 2 goals and 15 shots. Not great numbers. Chris Outhwaite with 6 goals and 52. Slightly better. And then we said there were multiples of. There was a lot of goals this weekend, and another first win. D-side denied by whatever happened in Hull the day before. They get their first win, and they get their first win on a home ice. The D-side Ducks off the mark at last with a 4-3 victory over the Sheffield Titans. Sheffield 2-0 up on this one, but D-side eventually turning things around. Kieran Clarkson with 2 goals. Cody Ogden and Chris Jones is the man with the game winner for the first ever win for the Ducks in North 2. Sheffield goals, 2 goals coming from Jackie Sheehan and 1 from Joe Matthewman. Just scroll down there as well. We should get the quite a short bench, as we can see there from the Titans, but you have to beat what's put in front of you, and they certainly obviously ran the Ducks quite close. Callum Preston is the netminder of note. He gets the win, 3 goals and 28 shots. Nathaniel Bell facing 39 shots, conceding 4 in that one. And well, yeah, the National Division side can't win. The National Division side at the moment cannot win, but the Division 2 side are by far and away absolutely pushing, smashing everybody out of the way. Telford winning by 10 goals to 3 in Bradford. The Bulldogs yet to win a game so far this season, and it always felt like it was going to be a bit of an uphill battle as they faced last year's champions. Telford 7-0 up inside 23 minutes. In this game, Ollie Hunt already on 6 goals for the year. Bradford, taking a little bit of shine off of the scoreline. First goals of the season for Connor Bennett. For Joel Bark and for Kasper Adrukianiec. That's what we'll go for. Lucas Vince with the other goal for the Bulldogs, but a pretty hefty win there. Telford, we said at the beginning of the year Telford were going to be one of the teams to beat in North 2. It certainly looks that way again. Multi-goal games from Josh Hustwick and Taylor Stanton, then Connor Bennett, Ollie Hunt, Ben Washburn, Callum Griffiths, Paul Davies, and of course Carroll Jets. Still managing to get 3 points even in a game like this. All the netminders as well getting a bit of time in this one. I feel a bit for Jacob Lowndes, 9 goals on 45 shots in 40 minutes, which is pretty painful. Good win there for Altrincham. They win at home against the Nottingham Lions too. Lions have one win and 4 defeats this season. A pretty comfortable win for Altrincham, who themselves were 8-0 up by close to the end of the second period. Charlie Davenport eventually kind of breaking the seal there. Nottingham pulling it back from 8-0 to 8-3, but Altrincham very much getting the final word on such things. Jake Frost and Ollie Gotts and David Kamenec with Kamenicek. How are we going for that one? Anybody from Altrincham, please let me know how you pronounce that one. They have multi-goal games. Carl Price and Billy King and Josh Milnes with the other goals there. Lions goals coming from Harvey Smith and 2, as we mentioned, from Charlie Davenport. Joe Nolan facing 53 shots. Altrincham putting in both netminders. Cameron Valentine Higg and Bailey Hodgkinson all managing to see some time. Games then for this upcoming weekend. 12 o'clock on a Saturday. You've got to love that face-off time. Kingston Sharks versus the Billingham Buccaneers. Hopefully the ice at Hull holds out for that one. D-side will look to build. Can they get a second win as they take on Bradford? And Sutton take on the Nottingham Lions at Ice Sheffield at 7:20. Then just the one game on Sunday. The local derby, the Sheffield Titans and the Nottingham Lions 2 will meet at 5 p.m. at Ice Sheffield. Then into Sunday. Into South 2, because of course we've got a few bits and pieces with as well this extra competition being played in South 2. Have to get Troy from somewhere. Yes, sorry Karen, you do have to get it from somewhere, and it is probably going to be your Div 2 side at the moment. But yes, the other thing that's happening in South 2 is this separate cup competition, the Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup. For those of you not familiar, Eddie Joseph, a massive figure, instrumental in bits and pieces for the Lee Valley Lions. I wonder if they're still hanging around in the chat. They were in the chat earlier, so we'll see whether they're still here. But we are eventually talking about the Lions. But they win in Haringey against the Huskies. Lee Valley win by 4-3. They nearly blow it again. Lee Valley were 4-0 to the good in this game. Again, only had 4 minutes of penalties, 1 penalty on each side. Nathan Awoyemi, Matt Ganna, Sam Bradley and Seb Downing putting Lee Valley into a 4-0 lead in Alexandra Palace. That is crazy. You think about how close the Lions came in that league game that they had recently. Benedictos Belkos, Connor Smith and Stuart Appleby pulling Haringey back. The Lions having a bit of a wobble at the end again, but it is the Lions who managed to hold on and get themselves the win there. Another win for Ethan Frame, facing 56 shots in this one. David Ride conceding 4 goals on 23. Less than ideal. On Saturday then, well, it's a first defeat for the Cardiff Canucks. They travelled across to the Ox Pens, and a first win of the season for the Oxford Rising Stars. So 3 points on the board for them. Oxford 3-1 up at one point. The Canucks pull it back to 3-3 with about 7 and a bit minutes to go, but a late game winner with 56-51 from Mike Willock, putting the Rising Stars into the driving seat. It was never going to be perfect forever for the Canucks, and as you can see, they travel with a pretty decent sized bench all in all. Harry Thomas facing the full 60 minutes, but a big game for the Rising Stars. Of course, they came so close the weekend before with a really short bench against when they played away and lost at Lee Valley, despite coming back and coming so close. A much more respectable bench size this time. And it's the Rising Stars who get themselves on the board and actually will put themselves above the Canucks, because a regulation win of 3 points, putting them over the Canucks, who only have the 2 from their overtime win against the Bristol Pitbulls the other week. And of course, some classic names from Oxford there. Joe Edwards still knocking around, playing in Div 2. Theo Bundock playing in Div 2 as well. A few names that I recognise from last year when I had the opportunity to watch the City Stars. Saturday, so the other 2 teams, so we've got Haringey and Lee Valley in the Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup. The other 2 teams also met on Saturday. The Peterborough Phantoms with a 5-4 win over the Invicta Mustangs. Overtime winning goal in this one from Leo Markey, getting Peterborough the win, but gets Invicta a point. this game pretty, as you can see from the scorelines there, back and forth, back and forth. Connor Pollard eventually tying the game up at the 55-minute mark to send things to overtime. And of course, people have seen the video of the fight doing the rounds between Jack Sansby and Sam Oliver. But yeah, it's Peterborough who get the first nod there. Luke Clark seeing the entirety of the action as he as he works that two-way between the Phantoms 1 and Phantoms 2. Into Sunday then, and back to league action for Lee Valley, and a great Saturday, but not a very good Sunday. They lose by 6-0 at home against Invicta. 6 different goal scorers, all getting their first goal of the season for Invicta, who moved to a 2-0 start in the league. A pretty comprehensive win, and you feel like, unfortunately, a bit of a tough one for Lee Valley. That maybe, just maybe, they burned themselves out the day before getting past Haringey. Cam Frayne getting the nod in this one. 6 goals and 71 shots. That screams to me of a tired Lee Valley side. All in all, and fair play to them for having a go, but yeah, just not a match on this occasion for the Mustangs. Elsewhere in League and Cup action, a 3-2 win for the Chelmsford Warriors over the Bristol Pitbulls. Bristol 1-0 and 2-1 down this one, coming back into the game both times, but an early goal in the third period from George Taylor is the difference between the two sides there. Another massive amount of shots being fired around in this one. Luke Connolly continuing 2 on 45, some very good numbers for him. That leads us then into this upcoming weekend. And League and Cup action, no games in the Eddie Joseph Memorial this weekend. Haringey return to Alexandra Palace. They'll be looking to try and do better than last weekend as they take on the Oxford Rising Stars. Peterborough take on the Solent Junior Devils at 6:30 p.m. in Peterborough. Sunday then, the Junior Devils have a double game weekend. They take on the New Look Lee Valley Lions, a game I went to last year when these two sides played down in Gosport, and it was an adventure, shall we say. The local derby at the Riverside on Sunday, 6 p.m. for the Chelmsford Warriors and the Invicta Mustangs. And then the home opener, finally getting to play at home for the first ever time. The Cardiff Canucks will start in another battle of the capitals. The Cardiff Canucks welcome the Haringey Huskies for their first ever game at home in South 2. Well, there we go then, everybody. Let's get rid of that, because I don't need that anymore. But there we are. All 5 divisions of the NIHL, all gone through, all the results, all the action, all the bits and pieces, which of course means we open the door. Anything you want to talk about, questions, comments, thoughts and feelings, anything you want to chuck in the chat, please do chuck in the chat. I can see that the Clan are leading the Panthers by 2-0. Oh, the encoding's overloading. Ooh, come back. Come back. Brad Bowering and Ollie Endicott in the Panthers team. Well, that's good to see. Of course, both signed on 2 ways by Danny Stewart earlier this year, so good that they've actually gone through and done that. Just having a quick squiz through what's going on. No big extra news that I can immediately see. Apart from the one game in the Austrian league, Salzburg beating Pustertal by 7-3. Not quite as close as the game in Glasgow by the sounds of it. I mean, just looking at some other bits and pieces that are around. If you're not familiar, if you like your hockey history, and I know obviously Hockey Stories has had a few sort of history bits and pieces. If you're not familiar with Craig Baird, who does Canadian History X. He does a podcast series called Pucks and Cups. That's all very sort of old school Canadian hockey history bits and pieces. He's just released a piece on the only goalie to captain the team to the Stanley Cup, Charlie Gardner. Was the goalie for the Blackhawks. So if you like your hockey history, do go check out those bits and pieces. The other bits and pieces we should probably look at if we sort of do Liam Kirk watch, a good win for the Iceman Berlin the other night. As they I'm just having an absolute brain fart as to who they played. They played Straubing. That was who they played. A 4-2 win for the Iceman Berlin over the Straubing Tigers. So Liam Kirk, getting regular points, getting regular top line minutes in a league much better than the Elite League. So for those of you keeping tabs on Liam, for the one thing, if you do want to keep tabs a bit easier, obviously you can watch the games, and there's a bunch of different ways that you can do that. Some of them more legal than others. If you're not wanting to watch whole games of DEL because you don't know, you haven't got the time, if you're on YouTube, head over and find what in German is called Magenta Sport. What in English you would spell as Magenta Sport, which is basically like the Deutsche Telekom run, sort of like a bit like BT Sport is the best way to describe it. Go find their YouTube channel because all of the DEL games are there, and you can get highlights of everything. So if you want to keep tabs on the Eisbären Berlin and what Liam specifically is doing, you can go and do that. The commentary is in German. He's playing in the German league. It's not translated for you. You'll just have to live with that. But you can go and check those bits and pieces out, and it will mean that you'll be able to get really, really good high quality things of whenever Liam scores goals, which is what I know a lot of people are after. Andrew has chucked in the Women's Elite League bits and pieces for the results from last weekend. The Queen Bees beating the Streatham Storm by 2-1. Solihull with a big win over the Kingston Diamonds by 10-3. But Kingston then getting at least getting something out of the weekend. They beat Whitley Bay Beacons by 4-2. Where do we think Britton Priest will end up? Well, yes, this was the other odd thing that came out, the sort of bizarre press release from Fife releasing Britton Priest. Where will he end up? I think he will end up in one of a couple of places. I do wonder whether he ends up back at Dundee. Whether it's a second or a third keeper, I don't know. The other option is potentially if Tommy Napier is going to be out for an extended period of time, then potentially he becomes an option for Bristol, or if there is any other team with netminders who are going to be out for any particularly long sort of period of time, he should be there. Played 0 minutes this year for Fife, which makes zero sense to me at all. Shane Owen carries such a heavy load at Fife that actually signing a guy who proved that he could be used in relief in the Elite League. And then last year was, yes, the Bees had a tough year, but he was pretty impressive, all things considered. I was not convinced when he signed, watched him with my own 2 eyes, and had to change my opinion on Britton Priest. He played really well. Does he maybe end up as a spare back home in Cardiff? There's a bunch of different options. I personally think that he could end up at Bristol. More just because I'm more interested as to, yes, hopefully Tyler Delabatouche will be back fit soon, but if Napier's injury is worse than first thought, you could do a lot worse as a guy to step in and take and be a stand-in number 1 than Britton Priest in the National Division right now. We've been watching Lions versus Hawks on Saturday. I'll probably certainly try and watch a bit of it. I think is interesting. Lee Valley Lions, great to see the Lee Valley Lions. Great to see that you were hanging around. We did have to talk about the 6-0 loss, but we did talk about the win as well. Very different, interesting thing for the Lions. And it should be said, if you haven't checked out any of the new sort of like highlights videos and behind the scenes stuff the Lions are doing, do go check it out. It's really, really interesting to see. Did I hear of some possible movement on the lease for Basingstoke, Anthony? Nothing new I've heard other than what I've spoken about last week. I don't know if anything's changed in the last week. If something's happened whilst we've been on the show, I suppose the one thing we can do very quickly is quickly pop in and just check the Basingstoke Ice Users forum. No, nothing new on there, so I will assume that nothing new has happened on that front. Sorry, Jamie, but no, there's still, as far as we're aware, the leases with Planet Ice's lawyers for them to sign. I'll commentate Kirk's games for the right price. I'll commentate Kirk's games right now in German if they wanted me to. But yes, DEL. I'll do it. I'll do it. Dylan will do it too. There's enough games in the DL. We can split them between us. Fife don't care about Brits. Let's not make jokes about them playing a Brit netty. Having commentated on the Guildford versus Fife Challenge Cup game quarter-final last year, where Fife travelled with 1 British player out of their roster and played short the entire night. A bit of a strange one, and I don't really get. And I think the thing that we've seen as well is that there's definitely Scottish players kind of up and coming. There's enough of them in the national division, but also as well we've kind of seen a bit of an upswing in quality from the SNL over the last couple of years. And at some stage, Jamie Thompson, Subway Sharks assistant coach, chair of Scotland Ice Hockey, and I have he's agreed to sit down with me and sometimes and kind of talk about where is Scottish hockey now, because we kind of especially I'm as far away from Scotland as you literally can possibly get in the British Isles. If I go everywhere to the north, if I go any further south, I get wet feet. So the fact that so there's definitely like Scottish players coming through with the ability to do something. Uni is pricey. The DEL can do me a favour. Yeah, fair play on that one, Dylan. But yeah, so there's, I think maybe there's like Wi-Fi for doing that. I don't really know. I refer everybody back to my conversation I had on A View from the Bridge the other week about player development, where a lot of people don't agree with me in elite league circles, and that's absolutely fine. I don't think I'm wrong on a lot of it, but I'm prepared to kind of meet people in the middle on that. Speaking of other bits and pieces that are kind of elite league focused, the boys from Door 14 Hockey are back tomorrow night. They go once every 2 weeks, so they'll be live on their YouTube channel tomorrow evening. I think they're live on Twitch and Facebook and a bunch of other places as well. But yes, Door 14 Hockey, definitely worth checking those boys out. It's always a good laugh. It's very less serious than some places. So do go check them out as well, and just go check out everybody's bits and pieces. Macca Talks Hockey, 3 on 3, the Billingham Stars podcast, the Blackburn Hawks do a podcast. Stick to the pod for North 1, 0 Pucks Given for South 1. Lots of good stuff out there. Go and find what you want to enjoy and enjoy it. If you've got time to go listen to bits and pieces, then go knock yourself out. Find what you like. And if you like what you get here at BOTW, that's awesome too. Trying to kind of be a bit of a catch-all for a lot of bits and pieces into the bargain, and doing things in our own little weird way, which a lot of you seem to enjoy. 6-0 loss was tough. Got videos coming out soon about it, hopefully. I mean, great to hear. Great to hear from the folks at Lee Valley. If the parking wasn't such a nightmare, I'd probably come and visit. Someone needs to get me on a podcast. I think that's the other thing I'd say as well. I'm quite happy to go on other people's stuff. It's not just all about my own thing. As you know, I'll go on. If people want somebody to come on and natter about stuff, I'll do it. I don't mind. I'm quite happy to kind of put myself about and be wherever it needs to be. The other thing as well, Dylan, given that you are a student, is why don't you start your own podcast? There's your dissertation project right there. Actually, that's what you can do, because you're at university in Sheffield. Road to Varsity. There's your podcast to do. Do a Road to Varsity podcast. Varsity, the biggest university game in this country, fills the Sheffield arena as the university take on Sheffield Hallam. There's your project to get your teeth into, Dylan. Go give us Road to the Varsity, and give us something from that direction. That'd be pretty impressive, all things considered. Just checking. There doesn't appear to be any other kind of big bits of news. NHL pre-season rumbles on. Of course, some discussion as to what will happen with Mike Hoffman, because of course he was on a PTO with the Edmonton Oilers and has been released. We get a couple of hundred people each game. They just park at the rink, I believe. I don't want a parking ticket. I spoke to Chelmsford after they all turned up and they all got parking tickets. There were plans. Max was down until he had bigger things to come up. Fair enough. I'm just the ideas man, as people will, as I will tell people. Nothing immediately big kind of popping up. I mean, the other bits and pieces that actually we'll talk about, just because that they have that kind of popped to me here. NHL starting next week. Don't know how the Cats will get on. It's get over the line, Jamie. We just need to make do for this year. I should do comms on Nottingham Varsity, so could do both. Oh yeah, that'd be good to see. A couple of bits and pieces though that I will bring up. Firstly, because it's all sort of weird international hockey news, is that the Australian and the New Zealand federations have moved their section in the IIHF. They have moved from the Oceania and Asia section to the North American section. Not uncommon. Certainly, obviously, as people will know from a football perspective, Australia do not play in the Oceania qualifiers. They play in Asia just because Australia is so far ahead. But this is all but kind of about sort of developing bits and pieces and developing relationships for Australia and New Zealand, who are, compared to some of the other bits and pieces, because they are quite a way away from Japan and China, but so far above everybody else that they're kind of moving into a space where they can kind of get some more developmental help from Canada, from America, as well as kind of hopefully kind of build up some of those other nations from below, nations that are around, nations like Brazil, like Jamaica, that are IIHF members, and kind of help with those bits and pieces Mexico, of course. Mexico versus Australia and New Zealand should be an interesting one. New Zealand and Mexico have met relatively recently in Worlds, so that should be quite fun. But the other thing as well was the IIHF Semi-Annual Congress, which of course meant we have 2 new members of the IIHF, 2 new official ice hockey nations that are fully in. Both Australia and New Zealand hosting World Championships year 2. Yep, very much so. I can't remember when New Zealand are doing theirs. Australia's will be in Melbourne, because it's always in Melbourne. But 2 brand new members to the IIHF. Bahrain become the latest member from the Middle East to officially be welcomed into the IIHF. And Kenya become the 5th African nation to be full members of the IIHF. Kenya, of course, people will remember the video that they did with Sidney Crosby. There's also a really good video from that was doing the rounds of them finding out the news that they had been elected unanimously to join the IIHF, which is pretty awesome to see. And it's great to see hockey spreading on the continent of Africa as well. For people who remember, of course, hockey stories I did with Karim, for the president of Algerian ice hockey, and just how bizarre it is to try and get things done there. 3 new IIHF teams. Greece, I don't remember hearing about Greece. I know that I don't know if Greece have become affiliate members. Graham, good evening. We've already made a mention of the Blackburn Hawks podcast, so keep rocking and rolling with that. European Hockey Hub as well. Mark from 4,000 Counties doing his own bits and pieces. So if you like obscure stuff about Austrian hockey, go check that out, because I've enjoyed that, because I watch a lot of Austrian hockey. But yeah, so some fun news out of IIHF. But the other really interesting thing from the IIHF Congress was 3-on-3 hockey. Now, we've seen test events, of course, for that in Britain. We saw that test event back in April of this year. Slough, Cardiff, a Scottish team, and like a sort of a random mixed team all played this sort of test event at the Ozone Rink in Bracknell. But the IIHF are putting together their proposal to put 3-on-3 hockey into the 2030 Winter Olympics in the French Alps. Regular ice hockey will also be there to take part. It is already a set event for that one, but there is also the idea, like we've had 3-on-3 basketball and basketball in the Paris Games, like we've had rugby sevens, to try and get an extra ice hockey event into the Olympics. And for me, great. If we can get Great Britain in somehow into 3-on-3, all for it. If it's a way to get ice hockey with British players at the Olympic level, if there's a way for us to get ourselves in, let's go for it. And we've got a tranche of players who've played and would also be very, very well suited to it. I believe the next test event for 3-on-3 is happening November in Brazil. So if they want a commentator for that, I would gladly take that job. But nothing to be, probably not going to go on for us. Either way, we're heading towards 9:30. So heading towards the end of sort of our time together. So I will say, yes, Youth Olympic Games has had both 3-on-3 and sort of regular hockey. Of course, Britain taking part in the 3-on-3 tournament. But yes, last call for any bits and pieces anybody wants to chuck in, so should be good. I am just checking as well, just because I know I don't know whether I'll watch this back, but certainly one of my best friends who I've met through hockey, a really, really good friend of mine, occasional commentary Blaze, webcast commentator Paul Shipman. He's got some medical stuff coming up in hospital for too long, so sending Paul all the best. Lovely big guy. I'm sure everything's going to be fine. He's in very, very good hands. So calm and confident on such things as it is there. But like I said, last call. Will Panthers pull this back? Period 3 just started. Glasgow have not started well. You would put some money on the Panthers at least getting 1. I do not believe they will end the game having scored 0 goals. I think is probably where I'd put on that. Let's have, oh, blimey. It's me wondering why my throat's so dry. And I've got my... Why is my mouth so dry? Why is my throat so dry? I have a bottle of water right here. It's almost like I could have solved my own problem on that one. Shut up the first over 2,000 crowd in the National League this season on Saturday night in MK. Yep, that is going to be a huge game. That's the only thing that's probably potentially taking me away from watching Blackburn versus Nottingham for free is MK versus Hull, because that game looks like it is going to be very, very good. Panthers don't finish well in this season. And that sounds like a them problem, unfortunately. Either way, I think, given the fact we've edged towards 9:30, I think it's time to call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. Follow my journey through British hockey this year with the Banners on the Road series. Last weekend in Slough for the Berkshire Bees versus the MK Lightning and all the weird stuff that happened there. And then you can catch up with the next episode this coming week. I will be at the Ox Pens on Sunday for the first A420 derby in quite some time. The Oxford City Stars and the Swindon Wildcats 2 is the next instalment of Banners on the Road. You can also check out our Hockey Story series. Like I say, one of the people I'm interviewing has messaged me during the show, which is really helpful. But Hockey Stories is our series of long-form bits of content from the 19th century to the present day, from going behind the Iron Curtain, into war, and beyond. Fantastic stories with all the kind of sort of great stories, weird stuff. The man who created the Canadian flag, Conn Smythe from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and how he ended up in a hospital in Basingstoke in World War II. All kinds of crazy stuff. The old BOTW podcast is there, as well as our free-to-download tabletop ice hockey game, Dice Hockey. You can download that. Like I say, it's free. All I ask is that if you do download it and you enjoy it, please chuck some money towards Parkinson's UK, because my dad has Parkinson's, and Parkinson's sucks. So let's get some money towards research and a cure. Either way, there is over a decade's worth of stuff, nearly 1,000 pieces, in fact, over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Facebook.com/bannersonthewall. If you like getting your news and bits and pieces through your Facebook feed, go like the page. Everything goes up on the website, and links to all kinds of other stuff ends up on there. Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it, at BannersOTW. That's the best place to keep up with me and my rolling commentary on UK and world hockey. But of course, if you forget any of those, that's the joy of YouTube. We are live every Wednesday. And also, if you look down in the video there, in the description, there's the links to all of our socials, as well as the link to our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Banners on the Wall's never going behind a paywall. That's just not how we are. But the costs do get incurred kind of doing bits and pieces. And if you like what you see, if you enjoy what you get, and you want to help support, then please do feel free to head over and chuck a few coins in the virtual busking hat at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. And if you're not in a position to donate money, that's fine. Share stuff around, tell your friends, share it on your social media, share the links to the video, share the links to the articles and stuff like that. It's all appreciated. This is all about, this is a passion project for me. It's been a passion project for 13 and a bit years. Actually, 13 and a half years. We're at the half, April, May, June, July, August, September. Yeah, 13 and a half years of doing Banners on the Wall. It's the longest creative endeavour of my life. So just share stuff around. If you, like I say, money to help with the costs is great. And like I say, if you enjoy it and you want to chuck some money in, it's greatly received. But if you're not in a position to donate money, then don't donate money. Don't cause yourself a headache on my account. Just share stuff around. It's massively appreciated. But of course, we are here on the YouTube channel, and do all the usual YouTube bits. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, because it's not just live streams that we do on here. Regular, interviews with the movers and shakers of British hockey. Tons of stuff to go back and check out as well. Game updates, interviews with folk from around the world of hockey that you can join up. But of course, the big thing for the YouTube channel, every Wednesday night, the NIHL's #1 live show, where you can get all the action from across all 5 divisions, is here Wednesday, 8 PM for the BOTW What's Current stream. There we go. Another week done. And another week in the National for me done, and now time to head back to South 1. What wonders will Derby hockey produce at the Ox Pens? My first visit there for a few months. Can Oxford pull themselves out of the mire? Can they get a second win of the season, or will Swindon get bragging rights in this first iteration of this derby for the first time in a while? Only thing left to do is to head down there and find out, and hopefully we'll have plenty more to talk about when we all meet up again next week. Be happy, and if you can't be happy, then wherever you are, whatever you do, please do your very best to be safe. As my friend Scotty Was would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe, and so long till next time. Enjoy your hockey where you find it, everybody. We'll see you next Wednesday.